Ladies and gentlemen, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you back to the FIDE Chess Grand Swiss. This is a chess tournament being held on the Isle of Man, and the top two finishers of it will qualify to the Candidates Tournament, and the winner of the Candidates Tournament will play for the World Chess Championship in 2014. Fabiano Caruana, Hikaru Nakamura, Ali Reza Firouzja, Hans Niemann, and many, many other exceptionally strong grandmasters are competing. We are just at the halfway point of the event, both on the open side and on the women's side. In this recap, we will feature an incredible amount of top names, sublime storylines, and everything in between. This video is being recorded late at night. That's why the room looks the way it does. Normally there is light outside, but I was away. I actually went to the Jets-Giants game today. I've never actually seen a football match live. Football game, I guess. NFL, like this football. Sorry, European. I don't know why we call it football. But I was invited by the amazing team at YouTube. And I got to hang out with some amazing people. So thank you for that. And that's why I'm a little bit late. Game one, Hikaru versus Alexei Sarana. This is a matchup that has occurred probably like 200 times online. I don't know if they've played many games against each other over the board. Alexei is, of course, a Russian grandmaster. But like many Russian grandmasters over the last 2 years, has changed federations and moved. I think he now lives in Serbia, I suppose. The game begins with d4. Knight f6, c4, e6, and Hikaru plays a Catalan. Knight f3 and g3. Now, black has many, many options. Black can enter the open Catalan, or black can play bishop to b4 check, allowing white to block, and then oftentimes dropping that bishop back to the e7 square. Or black can just play bishop to e7 and never take this pawn. In any case, if black takes on c4, it's an open Catalan. If black doesn't take on c4, it's a closed Catalan. Check, bishop d2, the bishop goes to e7, both sides castle, knight bd7, and now Hikaru plays an interesting move, which is bishop to c3. Normally, knight to c3 is played in just any queen's pawn position, but bishop c3 is fascinating. And bishop c3 gives away the pawn. And it's just a pure giveaway of a pawn. That knight bd2, right, would try to win it back. b5. And then white would try to play on this diagonal. And maybe undermine with a4. Clearly, Hikaru comes prepared. Sarana plays b6. Sarana spent 18 minutes after Hikaru played bishop c3. That is how you know. Look at the time. Both guys just like, okay, we're going for a little Catalan, bishop b4, and castles, knight d7. I don't know why they're both British singing the song. It's just the first accent I always go to. Yeah, bishop c3 is a very, very odd move. And then after getting his opponent to play b6, Hikaru takes, and then he goes here, which is... Let me tell you something right now. If children are watching this, make sure they don't play chess like this. This dude went bishop d2, bishop c3, bishop d2. This is the type of stuff that works at the meta level and the super GM level. You can't understand this stuff. 3 moves in the first 10 with the bishop. And at worst, the position is just equal. The position is never going to be worse for white because it's a queen's pawn. It's a very solid opening. Black can't really take advantage with these kind of passive but, solid pieces. And Hikaru plays knight c3, and a couple moves later he moves the bishop again, because why not? Because why not? Then he plays rook c1, obviously trying to meet knight takes with rook takes c3, right? That is why he's doing what he's doing. Sarana plays c5. Sarana has executed every single plan of a queen's pawn opening. He has both d and c pawns in the center. They are well supported. They are supported by knights and bishops, and everybody is happy. But now, unfortunately in chess, the rule of thumb is nobody can be happy. You can't just have everybody happy. Both players cannot be happy. Nobody can be happy in chess. Knight to d2. Hikaru, first move out of prep, spends 36 minutes. Also, 20 of that was spent going to the bathroom and having explosive poops. I'm just kidding. He actually thought for 36 minutes. Unless that actually happened, in which case that's hilarious. And Hikaru, I promise I'm not spying on you. I do always wonder, like, can you imagine these players playing a certain... Like, what if right now you really got to go to the bathroom, right? And then you go, and it's just, like, you ate something bad. You're just sitting there, just, or whatever noise you make when you go to the toilet. Like, at some point, you got to go back to the board, right? Anyway... Diarrhea is hilarious. Diarrhea is is the great equalizer. You could be rich, poor, you could live in a mansion, you could live in a small shack, you could travel the world, you could never leave your country, but at the end of the day, regardless of any of that, diarrhea humbles everybody. Knight takes c3, rook takes c3, and right now, my friends, that is a hanging pawn. But that is clearly Hikaru's idea because he probably wanted to infiltrate on c7, bother the bishop, and if the bishop moves to a6, he probably would have played knight f3 and tried to win the pawn. I don't know. I haven't talked to him. Hikaru takes on c5, and now begins a very interesting assault of the black position, right? He's attacking all these different things, but black is the one with the pawns in the center. Plays d4, and now Hikaru trades the bishop and plays rook c4. Then they trade bishops, and it's just gonna be like, can Hikaru break through this structure? Plays queen c1, poking at the c5 pawn, which, by the way, cannot be defended. But if you take on c5, then queen e2 is hanging at the end. But that's what Hikaru waits, and then he takes on c5. Now, sensing that desperate times are coming, Sarana lashes out with h5, which is a very good move. The point of h5 is that if white plays h4, black in the future can bring his rook there, and maybe even just play g5. Not right now, because you would lose the pawn, but in the future. So Hikaru's like, look at Sarana. Sarana's instigating. Hikaru now needs to consolidate. In chess, when you win material, sometimes you need to trade some pieces. Let's do the math, right? White has 6 pawns, black has 5. Pawn endgame, white is winning. Queen endgame, probably a draw, but white has winning chances. Rook endgame, probably the highest level of a draw. Knight endgame, probably winning for white, but draw-ish. Draw-ish. It depends, right? It depends. Like, black has another weakness here. So what is Hikaru going to try to simplify, right? So Hikaru makes sure he has no weaknesses. No weaknesses. This is just scary, but there's no threats. No threats. Knight d3. Look at Sarana. Look at knight e1. Hikaru trying to claw his way out. He gets one pair of rooks off. Now Hikaru's going to take the pawn on d4. Rook d4. But look at Sarana. So active. Checkmating threats. The queen stuck. Back rank stuff. Queen on b2. Hikaru consolidating. Sarana dancing around him. Look at this move. That's a mate. Hikaru blocks it. Hikaru defends with his king. Loses the b2 pawn. Oh my goodness. But goes for a knight endgame. Goes for knight endgame. Draw-ish, but white can win. White can win this pawn, and also white can win a pawn race. And now, maybe Stockfish can hold this, but look at Hikaru. Oh my goodness. Hikaru's getting there, and he does. That pawn that Sarana used as a deflection mechanism from his position has suddenly made him lose a pawn. And Hikaru, by the way, if you're confused, knight e6 check would be very brutal there. So knight e4 check. Now Hikaru might have to part ways with a pawn. King f3, king e2. There he goes. Sarana takes on g4, but here comes knight to c6, and king d3, and e4, and Hikaru can't be stopped. He has a passed e-pawn. The knight is going to win this pawn. That pawn is going to queen. Ladies and gentlemen, it takes 70 moves. Dare I say, a Magnesian effort. Look at Hikaru's knight. Hikaru's knight needs to take this pawn, and there has to be a buzzer beater. The g-pawn is going. g5, g4, but Hikaru, he failed. He can't stop the pawn on g1. Call an ambulance. Call an ambulance. But not for me! Knight to e1 if you make a queen! It's knight to f3. My heater wanted to celebrate, so my heater turned on. My heater heard me talking about calling an ambulance. Knight to f3, what a wicked move. Now, some of you might be keenly observing here that a knight stops this, but it doesn't stop the pawn. You can't stop both pawns, my friends. And Hikaru wins the game in style, picks up the queen. The a-pawn gets there. Look at... Talk about a buzzer beater. The knight cannot stop both pawns. And ladies and gentlemen, it takes 70 moves, but Hikaru defeats Sarana. He gets a hat trick. That's 3 wins in a row. This man is back up there. Number 3 in the world. Very close to Fabiano. And he's in first place. Another person chasing first place is Hans Niemann. Alireza Firouzja versus Hans Niemann. Hans yesterday played an amazing game. And I thought I was hyping him up. Then he said some nasty things to me on Twitter. And, you know, I feel like saying stuff on social media it's like a badge of honor. You know what I mean? I wear it like a badge of honor. I realized, like, I got some feedback yesterday that saying that Hans won with 100% accuracy could be misconstrued. I just kind of wrote that title because a couple of weeks ago I made a title called Magnus Carlsen wins with 100% accuracy. It did really well. 100% accuracy is really liked by the algorithm because, you know, flawless. Yeah, I guess that could be misconstrued given the whole scandal thing. But having said that, if Hans is innocent, then it should be all right to say that he played with 100% accuracy, right? Anyway, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. It's just, you know, the youngins always do. Knight f3. This is a huge matchup. This is Alireza Firouzja. This is Hans Niemann. Hans trying to win with black versus a 2780 rated player. And Alireza plays a very weird line. He gets real weird with it here in the opening. Rook to e1. He baits Hans into moving the knight in front of the c-pawn. And then he plays d4. So Alireza wastes 2 moves with his pawn. And he catches Hans's knight a little offside. And so what Hans does, plays a5. He tries to take some queenside space, and then he puts his knight here and plays a4. And this is a really weird game. Like, Hans is trying to open up his queen, and Alireza's like, I'm going to put my knight here because this stupid pawn you moved cannot go backwards, and the knight here can be traded, and very, very obscure position. Bishop to f4, all right, attacking the pawn here. Bishop d6, looking to give away the bishop. And then maybe bring the queen to b6, for example. Knight to e5, take. The bishop now has to get out. And Alireza's going to try to keep pushing, right? Play c4, prying away the defense. But Hans, nifty defending. And now Hans is the one striking back on f2. Now Alireza has to play this ugly move, rook f1. One thing you might notice, my friends, both guys are spending a lot of time. It's move 15. Both guys have made 15 moves. They have 25 more moves to make to get extra time. That's how classical chess works. And they have 30 minutes. Alireza takes on f6, and Hans Niemann takes on f2. My friends, it's not a good idea to give away 2 pieces for a rook. But Hans is 2667. He's not 667, and he's not 766. He knows what he's doing. The reason Hans is able to do this is because now White's king is in the open, and e5 and g5 are threats. g5 more than e5, because if e5, queen takes d5, or bishop takes d5. But both are probably fine. King g1, and if you get out of the pin, yoink. So Hans gets a pawn on f2 and the pawn on b2. That's weak, that's hanging, that's under pressure, that's under pressure, that's under pressure. Now he gets this pawn as well. Oh my. Pawn takes d5. Now queen is taking on c7. Hans takes. King slides over. Queen c3 from Alireza. The game is on a knife's edge. It's dead equal, but all this means is unclear. This is not really equal. This is Stockfish out for a smoke break. Stockfish has given up, okay? Stockfish is a parent with a really, really bad toddler and he's drinking, okay? Like, this is what we're doing here. Rook e8. Now Alireza says, I could take this pawn or this pawn, and I'm pretty sure my king is safe. Let me grab a pawn. I'm gonna grab a pawn, sauce on the side, okay? Rook e4, queen d2 offering a queen trade. And if you don't trade queens with me, I'm gonna go take d7. That's a mistake. Alireza makes a mistake. He has 1 minute to make 14 moves. Alireza Firouzja has 1 minute to make 14 moves. Hans takes his knight, queen d7, and apparently black is winning. Apparently black is winning. Black is winning if he doubles his rooks. And the threat is simply rook e1. That is the threat. Like, for example, you play h4, rook e1 check, and I get in. So the only way to defend here for white is to play bishop to d2 and stop rook to e1 completely. Then the best move is to hit the queen, because the queen is pinned. If queen takes c6, queen d4 check, and white loses everything. Everything. So rook e2 is what Hans plays. He doesn't play rook e8. He has a minute on the clock. He plays this move with 30 seconds. He misses his chance. Alireza takes on c6. His king is being defended. The king is in the corner. Look at this. This is mate. But Alireza slides back just in time. Rook e1 check. Hans is still hunting him. Queen e2. Queen d1. And in this position, apparently, instead of queen d1, a3 was winning for Hans. Very, very tough move to see, because you got to take your eye off of this for a second. That's still hanging. If bishop d5, queen d1 check. So a3 would have won, apparently. I imagine he was probably afraid of something like queen d7. But yeah, a3 was the move. And if queen g2, for example, there is check, you block, and then we can trade, and then I play this move g5. So, crazy. A time scramble game. Hans winning against Alireza. He still wins the bishop, but here's the difference. This is a draw. These pawns will trade against each other. Bishop and pawn. The pawn will go. The rook will have to sacrifice itself. Ladies and gentlemen, a very tense fight between Hans Niemann and the number 4 ranked chess player in the world, Alireza Firouzja, and they make a draw. What a game. I mean, talk about on the edge of your seat. Alireza plays a move and is almost losing on the clock, and is losing if Hans plays rook e8 and just goes forward. Not easy to see, because rook to e2 looks good, but it's not the best move. And then there's no very obvious win. Apparently going back to e7 is the right way, which is tough to spot. They make a draw. Very stressful game. Wow. I have another very fun game for you. This person is also tied for first after winning this game. Arjun Erigaisi versus Rinat Jumabaya from Kazakhstan. This one was a Spanish. It was an anti-Berlin. Black played knight f6 d3. Rinat, by the way, 2585 is like a criminal elo. Like, this man is really, really good. And he plays this really aggressive line with queen takes d5. But Arjun fires right back. Plays b4, a4, looking to trap his piece. Rinat plays e4, down 40 minutes on the clock. Sacrificing a pawn in the opening. Plays a5 to stop white from trapping his piece. And Arjun just takes, gives a check, forces the pawn to come up to c6 and just drops back. And he basically says, Rinat, I'm up a pawn. I have 6 of them. You got 5. I got e5 when I want it. Rook b1. I'm going to create an attack on your king. Blah, 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 blah. There it is. That's a fork. But queen e6. You can't take on f6 because then I'm going to take on e2. So what does Arjun do? He takes on f6. He doesn't care if he gets taken on e2 because after takes, this pawn has made it all the way. Rook g8, knight d4, and now he's just trying to put that bishop on. Look at that move. Oh my, bishop to f8. What an anchor. Talk about an imposter. On the home square of the bishop, rook takes g7, rook e1, Arjun is still a pawn up. Rinat never got his investment back. Rook e7. He's attacking Arjun. b6. Look at the knight. At some point, black is gonna... Oh my. A piece is hanging, but knight b5. Rook c7 is a threat. Rinat plays rook d7, trading the rooks. 40 seconds versus 15 minutes. White has 15 minutes to make 10 moves, and black has 40 seconds to make 10 moves. Bishop to a3, bishop to e6, bishop f4. Oh my. Here comes Rinat. Here come Rinat's pieces. Bishop b8, bishop b3, trying to win the pawn. We trade. Uh-oh. Erigaisi's gonna have to push his f-pawn, and he does, and he brings the knight. But now the rook goes to d8. Erigaisi's gonna have to rely on these pawns, otherwise I'm not so sure he's gonna be able to win. Meanwhile, Rinat is gonna try to get the c3 pawn. He starts bringing his king, and he zips around back. This game is also hanging on a knife's edge. Rinat's king is stopping the f-pawn. And now he's not even down a pawn. Arjun plays c4. Rook, who's stopping the knight? The knight's gotta move. Arjun just lost his c-pawn. Oh my goodness. And white is queening. That's it. I mean, it's a race. It's like the Hunger Games. These are the last sets of pawns remaining. King here. Are we gonna have a repetition? Arjun grabs the pawn. My friends, it is time for a race. Who is going to win? All the other pawns have fallen. Rook a8. Check. And here comes Rinat with b5. And here comes g5 and b4. Oh my goodness. g6 and b3. They're both 2 squares away from queening. They're 1 square away from queening. Rook to h1. And now in this position, black has bishop takes, clearing the path for the c-pawn. And it looks like white is able to get back in time. But after rook f8, who guards the pawn? If you play knight to h6, I cut off your king. That is unfindable. That is not findable. The point is, if you just play rook d8 cutting off the king, I have knight to d4 check. This might still work, but there's no reason to allow it. Instead of that, Rinat plays this move. And what that move does is it secures the promotion. But what it doesn't do, my friends, what it does not do, white creates a shield. The pawn that is trying to queen is now shielded by the knight. But the best move on the board, bishop sacrifice. And now, rook to a1. Dear Lord, it is still not over. Rook e1 check. Rook to f1 to stop the pawn. Check. And in this position, king a5, f8 queen. The only move that draws is check. Because then you make a queen. If you just make a queen, like what happens in the game, knight d6 and mate is unstoppable. There are mates now all over the board. Queen d8, queen a8, and the difference, why you had to give the check, right? And then this is that after knight to d6, there is this check. And then the king, even though he can run, will constantly be checked, and the rook is in a better position. But what happens in the game? The rook is not in a better position. Knight d6, he gives a check, the king runs, and in this position, Rinat resigned. Because you cannot stop mate. You cannot stop these two checkmates. What an apocalyptic endgame. All the pawns were running down the board, and Arjun Erigaisi prevails in the Hunger Game of the pawns, and he wins, and he is also tied for first. Now, game from the women's side, the winner of this game is also now in first place. Tan Zhongyi versus Bibisara Asobayeva. This is a King's Indian defense, one of the most provocative openings in chess. Players do a little dance here with the knights, bishop e3, knight f3, and white goes to attack. g4, h4, attacking with her pawns. g5, restricting the pieces on e8, not allowing anything to go to the f6 square. f5 played by black, looking to create counterplay. White takes on c5 to try to poke a hole in the black position, but here comes a4, and Bibisara puts the knight on d6. The position is opening up for black as well. The knight undevelops to e8 to reroute to the e6 square. Look at this. To go side to side, the knight has to go 1, 2, 3. But you have that luxury because once you get to d4 or f4, it is a beautiful position. The black bishop is desperately retreating in the corner of the board. Rook g1. Tan Zhongyi is going to play g6 and black is going to be on the ropes, but knight to d4, g6 on the board. You cannot allow white to play g7. Frankly, you cannot even allow white to take on h7 because you will probably lose. So she plays pawn takes g6, and the idea is to hide the king. You use the pawn. This is called an umbrella pawn. It's when you use an enemy pawn to shield yourself from the attack. White wishes that pawn did not exist. If it didn't exist, there would be a mate, damn it. So the pawn has to stay. But if the pawn has to stay, now it is black who is going to try to trade the rooks. And as the players reach the time control, it is Bibisara who realizes her opponent is stepping away from the battle. When you turn your back to your opponent, especially in a fight, it is all over. Rook to g3, and in this position, she lands the haymaker, pawn to e4, opening up the bishop from the corner of the board, which just about 10 moves ago was shunned by the h-pawn, booted all the way back, only for it to blossom, grow its wings, and come alive. Pawn to e4, queen to d1. The rook infiltrates and paralyzes the entire first rank. You try to kick the queen out. It does not help. And now the final piece is plugged into the attack. b5. Oh my God. Rook, queen, knight, c4, and she finishes it in style. Knight c2. A deflection, a removal of the guard. You get the rook to come here. You take on f1. And now Bibisara Asobayeva, the international master from Kazakhstan, the reigning defending women's world rapid champion, I think, or blitz. I think it's rapid. She is 4.5 out of 5. 4 wins, 1 draw, a win over 25-17 rated Tan Zhongyi from China. My friends, the recap is over after this game. Is this a blank game? Yes, the recap is over after this game. It's the moment you've all been waiting for. It is chess.com still not having a photo of Ramazan Zhalmakhanov, although I think they have uploaded it. I think it's just, for some reason, not yet live in this database. I offered them a trade. They could add a photo for Ramazan, but they would remove my photo. I hope they didn't give him my photo. My friends, let me remind you, this is the 2447 rated 21-year-old Kazakhstan-based international master who has beaten a 2650, beaten a 2680, drew Alireza Firouzja 2777, and he drew a 2682. And in this round, he's playing a 2698. And I think you know why he is covered in today's recap. He plays an open Sicilian against Sam Sevian and they clash. Pawns are flying off the board. He plays pawn to b3. He plays f3, stopping the queen. They both castle. There's no knights. Ramazan plays bishop c5 and queen f2. It's a very tense position. a4, he takes queenside space. Black fights back with a5, looking to remove the defense, but all that's given Ramazan is a pawn on the a file. Black plays here. Bishop b6, queen a8. The pawns are... but look at a5. Look at a5, anchoring the bishop, and that's going to be a menace in every single endgame. Savian plays bishop to h6. Ramazan brings back the bishop looking for a trade. Bishop to f8, the bishop goes back to b6. The only way that black can make progress is d4. That is the only way. You may ask yourself, why is it not e4? It's not e4 because this trade benefits white. It opens up his queen and he can actually attack. The only chance that Sevian has is to play d4, but that's a massive commitment because then you have to calculate f4, which would remove the defense of your pawn. Sevian, can he be the chosen one to take down the unbeatable Ramazan Jalmakhanov? They repeat moves. The bishops repeat moves again. Will Sevian play d4? He brings the bishop back to a slightly different square. Now d4 still looks good, but he doesn't go for it. Sam Sevian repeats the position against Jal Makhanov, and they make a draw. Ramazan Jalmakhanov is undefeated with draws against 2698 rated Sam Sevian, 2777 rated Alireza Firouzja, and 2682 rated Alexei Sorana. The Cinderella story continues. And my friends, your standings after 5 rounds of the FIDE Grand Swiss 2023 are as follows. Hikaru in first place, 4 points out of 5, tied with Yesipenko and Arjun Erigaisi. Tomorrow we will get the matchup, Hikaru versus Yesipenko. And then it is a tie from 4th to 18th place of players with 3.5. And let me tell you something, those guys are going to have to start destroying each other if they want any chance at being a top 2 finisher. If you get first place with a couple rounds to go, you're going to make draws. But 20 people can still compete for first place, probably more. The Grand Swiss will resume in round number 6. Get out of here.